Good afternoon. I hope you are having a wonderful day today. I am excited today and I hope you are. So let's go ahead and jump into today's verse of the day, which comes from Mark chapter 8, verse 35. And the NIV version says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it." The New Living Translation says, "If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news, you will save it." And the Amplified Bible says, "For whoever wishes to save his life in this world will eventually lose it through death. But whoever loses his life in this world for my sake and the gospel's will save it from the consequences of sin and separation from God." In the verse preceding today's verse, Jesus says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." I've read these two verses many times. My husband and I have had in-depth conversations about these two verses, particularly verse 34 just the other day. But it wasn't until today, this morning in fact, that I got new understanding of these verses. So I heard a saying once that the Bible is like a diamond. Every time you hold it up to the light, you see things that you've never seen before. That same diamond will show you colors that you've never seen. And the Bible is just like that diamond. It will show you new meaning and new understanding every time you open it. That verse that you have memorized in your head will take on a new meaning than it did yesterday. You'll see something that you didn't see before. And that's what today's verse did for me this morning. When me and my husband discussed this verse the other day, we looked at it from a point of literal meaning. The verse says that whoever will lose their life for God's sake will save it. So we interpreted it as Jesus died for us, so we must be willing to die for him, as in literally die for his sake. The verse before it says to pick up your cross and to follow him if you want to be his disciple. I interpreted it as picking up a small cross, like how a Catholic priest has a cross, or how someone has a cross necklace, or how Catholics have rosaries. It wasn't until I did some research and meditation that these verses that I got a different insight on these verses. The verse pick up your cross is also translated to shoulder your cross. Like Jesus was forced to carry his cross, that cross that he hung on and died on, that huge cross that symbolized death and crucifixion in those times. This heavy cross is what Jesus is referring to. Shoulder your cross. Pick up this heavy cross and be willing to die and be persecuted for me. We must be ready and willing to die on the account of our faith and our love for our God. Seeing that image in my head as opposed to me simply picking up a small cross and praying brought so much more depth and understanding of what is required of me if I am truly following God. It's in our human nature to want to save ourselves from pain, hurt, and death. But Jesus said that we must deny ourselves, deny our flesh on his behalf. So not only did my understanding of picking up my cross change, but my understanding of losing my life for his sake changed. So I went from thinking that I needed to pick up my little cross and be willing to speak about God to any and everyone, to actually shouldering this heavy cross and being willing to die. So this one verse has two meanings for me now, just as today's verse. So I went from thinking that I must be willing to die and lose my life for Christ if I want to ultimately save it. And while that's true, there's new understanding that I gained. Not only literally be willing to lose my life, but I must be willing to submit my life. I must give my life, my will, my wants, and my desires to God. I must deny my fleshly desires and surrender them to God. Everything, every part, even the smallest part that I think is insignificant, I must surrender it to God so that his will be done and not my will. When we submit and surrender everything, when we do that, we in turn will reap everything that God has for us. Our wills and our desires pale in comparison to God's will. Our wants and desires are often filled with temporary things. Majority of the time, it's these earthly possessions that will eventually decay and they won't last. But God's will and his plans for us, his gifts, are for eternity. How can we measure his joy? How can we measure his peace and his grace, his love, his protection, his favor? We can't. And that's why surrendering ourselves should be easy and a no-brainer, but it's not. Why must we always want to be in control? Until we learn to let our controlling ways go, shoulder our crosses, and surrender fully to God, he cannot work in the capacity of which he wants to in our lives. So today, let's work on surrendering. Let's work on denying our flesh and putting our lives in the hands of the Creator. He knows better than we will ever know what we truly need. So let's let him lead. Let's be true followers. And it's okay to be a follower if you're a follower of Christ. So that is today's verse. This morning when I was reading today's verse, and I read a devotional about today's verse, and then I just meditated on it and asked God to speak to me. And I just got this new understanding because me and my husband, when we had talked about this verse, we were thinking, okay, Jesus died for me. I should be willing to die for him. Literally die. But it also took on this new understanding that I gained that not only should I be willing to lose my life, but lose it as in surrender it to God, not in the form of physically dying, but surrendering my will to him, giving him everything, even the smallest little things. And it just clicked in my head that there's things that me and my husband have been discussing and trying to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And it's just like, wow, even this small little thing that seems so insignificant to us, we need to be surrendering it to God, every single thing, and wait on him to answer us, wait on him to lead us and to guide us. The smallest thing that you think that you can handle on your own, so give it to God. You got to submit your entirety to God. So that me just having this aha moment, this moment just made me feel so good, because I've read this verse so many times and me and my husband discussed it so many times. And like that diamond, when you pick it up and you see those new colors that you haven't seen before, the Bible, this verse opened up, and I've read it before, but it took on a new meaning, a new interpretation for me. And I'm just like, wow. I'm sitting here debating and contemplating about something. Why didn't I take it to God? Why am I not surrendering everything to him? Why am I not doing that? And then also the verse about picking up your cross and following me. And to me, for so long, I was just thinking, okay, I'm picking up my cross as a symbolism of picking up my Bible, just saying I have faith, proclaiming it to the world. But to actually see the other interpretation of shouldering your cross and just having that image of Jesus carrying this cross, that he had to walk so far, and he was already beaten. He was already suffering, and he was struggling to carry this cross, and they had to get someone else to carry the cross for him. But for us to actually shoulder our cross and be willing to be persecuted, be willing to be talked bad about, be willing to be hated and spat upon and have whatever hurled in our direction because we have surrendered to God, because we give it all to God. That's just like, wow. I can truly look at myself and deny myself and say, God, not my will, but your will. As Jesus said in the Garden of Gethsemane, I think that's how it's pronounced. Look, don't quote me on it. I think that's how it's pronounced. But sorry. But yeah, as Jesus said, not my will, but your will be done. That's the attitude we need to have. That's how we need to approach everything in life. God, your will, not my will, because you know what is meant for me. You know what I need. I have these desires and these wants, but what is that going to bring me? What are these things going to bring me? Because most of our desires and most of our wants are earthly things. Yeah, we want to be happy, we want love, we want joy, we want peace, but we can't get that peace that surpasses all understanding. We can't get that unconditional love that God has, because only God can provide those things. We think we know what love is. You think you know what love is from your parents' love, your spouse's love, but nothing is greater than the love of God. That love is unconditional, because you know that your parents, your family, your friends, sometimes that love is conditional. Sometimes they mad at you and they don't want to talk to you. Sometimes you do something and they're like, you done had breakups before, so you know that love is conditional. But God's love is unconditional. So yeah, today's verse just really opens my eyes, and every day I'm learning. That's why I'm sharing this. That's why I'm sharing every time I do my morning devotionals. I like to get on and share it, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be disciples. We're supposed to be disciples of Christ, and bringing people in with God's word, and helping them in any way that we see fit, because we are all one. So I hope today helped you get some insight, as it did for me. If it didn't, then that's great that you knew that. I'm sure there is more things in the Bible that you can learn. We all should be learning. The day that we stop learning and stop growing is the day that we should have our last breath on this earth, because we should constantly be growing, constantly be learning. That's what it's all about, because God is so powerful. He is so powerful, and he is all knowing. So he will show us new things every day. So pick up your Bible, read that verse that you have memorized, read it again, and see if it brings new meaning and new interpretation to you, because it will. So I pray that you have a great day. I pray that your day is blessed. May God continue to cover you, protect you, love you. May he open your eyes and open your heart to new understanding, new interpretation, so you can learn him more, learn of his character, learn of his love, and reap everything that he has in store for you. So have a blessed day.